So we're talking about measures of dispersion. So usually when we get data, when we get the data, it tends to go towards a particular value. And that's what we call the measure of tendency, central tendency, where the data go towards. But there's also the measure of dispersion. We have different measures of dispersion that allow us to see the spread of the data, how the data spreads out, whether it's close together, or we could say squeezed together, or whether it is far apart. All right, so some of the key things that we usually look at, the types that we usually look at are the range, interquartile range, semi-interquartile range, and standard deviation.
Yeah,
So
you could
these
go
are
back.
some,
I finished right now.
no problem. So these are some key examples of measures of dispersion. So later on, we're going to look at some questions where we actually do some calculations for the range, interquartile range, semi-interquartile range. You don't have to do any calculation for the standard deviation, but that's something that we will talk about at a later date. But for now, we're going to work on the range, the interquartile range, and semi-interquartile range. And then when we see the values we get, we can use it to compare different sets of data. So we have some definitions here what each represent. So the range represents the difference between the largest and smallest values of the data. So it also shows us, it basically shows us what would be the largest difference between any two values in the data. So when we find a range, we know that if we compare any random two values, there is no way that they are going to be larger in difference than any other two, other than the range that we actually calculate. So the range gives us the overall spread from lowest to highest. The interquartile range shows us the spread between the quartiles, the main quartiles, which would be upper and lower quartile. And the semi-interquartile range, that basically is half of the interquartile range. So it basically gives us half of the interquartile range. And then when we talk about the standard deviation, that's something that you guys are only required to understand what it is. You don't have to actually do the calculations, but we're still gonna look into it at some point so you guys could understand what it actually is and how we can actually use it and so forth. So even though we don't have to learn it, I'm still going to show you guys what it is used for and what it is used for in different industries and so forth. Okay, so I want you guys to write this down for now, and we're going to get into the calculations. This is a sample from two classes, call them just group A and group B, and we want to find the range, the interquartile range and the semi-interquartile range for each. Okay, so similar to what we used to have to do for the mean, for the median, we would organize this from the lowest to the highest when you're trying to calculate the interquartile range, because we need to find the quartiles first of all. And then when we get the quartiles, we find a difference between the quartiles, which would assist us in getting what we need here, as well as the semi-interquartile range. But when we're calculating the range, what we need to do is look for the highest number out of all these values. So some students got 64, 72, 57, 62, 55, 42, and so on. We need to know which one here is the highest value and which one here is the lowest value, and then we subtract them. All right, so I'll give you guys a chance to see if you could do it on your own. This is something we did sometime last year, if you remember. And the interquartile range, we kind of touched on that Thursday. So let's see how much you guys remember and if you're able to calculate these now on your own, and then we go through them. So this is for the first class. We have the second class a little lower down. So I want you guys to try and calculate this first. We'll go through it, and we'll do the second class, and then we'll compare the two sets of data. All right? So work on this one for now. So who got the highest in the class and who got the lowest in the class? You know, usually when we're doing statistics, trying to get data, we don't usually include names. So it's just like numbers without a name behind it. But we just know that some student out here got a high score and their score was whatever. And some other student got another score, which was the lowest. And we're just seeing a number. So we don't actually see the face of who got the grades, but we see the actual numbers. So let's see how you guys get this done. And just to give you a little hint, if you know how to do the interquartile range, the semi-interquartile range should be easy. Whenever we talk about semi, just think of when we use that word semi, we talk about a circle, then a semicircle, you know, all this kind of stuff. Semitone, semibreve. What do these words usually tell us? What does it mean? So I want you guys to work on that. And as soon as you're done, just type finish in the chat. Okay, so we're talking about the range. So the first thing we want to calculate is the range. And we said that the range is the difference between the highest and the lowest values that we have in the data. So first of all, we need to identify which one is the highest one and which one is the lowest one. So you always got to be careful in this case because you might think, okay, I just picked the lowest number. I think 42 is the lowest. But then when you look and you keep going, you realize, wait, there's 37. So whenever you check in for this, you need to make sure that you pick the correct numbers. So here now, I could see that the highest number is 82. Now I need to back check again just to make sure. So when I looking back, I could realize, okay, you got 70s, you got 60s, 50s, 40s, nothing higher than 82. So 82 is definitely the highest. And I would say 82 minus, now I need to subtract it from the lowest. I need to subtract it from the lowest value. So now I need to identify what is the lowest value. So when I look here now, I see we have 40s. It looks like 42 could be the lowest, but then when I look over here, I see 37. So then that means I have to do 82, take away 37. And before I actually do it, I'm going to look back again just to make sure I didn't miss any values that could have been lower than 37. So now when we subtract 82, take away 37, the answer we would actually get is 45. So we would know that 45 was the range of the data, the difference between the highest and the lowest. So 45%, since we're talking about grades, was the range of the data from lowest and highest. We found a difference. The difference was 45. So if you got this, just type correct in the chat. Let's see who got this. Correct, 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 correct. Nice. That's good. All right, so you guys got the range. And remember, a lot of times people get confused with the range by just saying, oh, well, it's just trying to tell us what is, you know, the lowest value to the highest value. So people would just leave the range as 37 to 82. That is not the range. What we're talking about is the difference between them. So don't just put these values and leave them like this. You actually have to calculate what the range is. Okay, so the next thing now that we need to do is find the interquartile range. Now, before we even do that, we need to arrange the numbers from lowest to highest. we need to arrange from lowest to highest. So we could identify the quartiles. Okay, so now we have these here arranged from lowest to highest. See if we can spread this a little bit. So we got the lowest to highest values here. Now what I need to do is figure out where is my lower quartile and where is my upper quartile. Where is my lower quartile and where is my upper quartile?
The lower quartile is 45.
So how you got 45? Like what did you do to
I
get
found the
45?
median.
So
You find the medium
what's a
first.
median? How did you find a median?
I
The
add up
middle number.
57 and 62.
The
Yeah. And then you get
57 and
Divided by
62?
2.
57.5.
And then divided by 2.
Okay, so you're saying the median was between the 57 and the 52?
62, teacher.
62.
Yeah.
Wait.
And then you get 59.
Oh,
But
And
I
then
made
yeah.
remember,
a
we're looking for
mistake.
the quartiles.
So I
Yeah,
made
the
a mistake.
quartile is 45 and 7
No,
to 7.
Jana, no, it can't be.
How?
You gotta add 45 and 45, I believe.
Because
No.
you have to, the lower quartile is between 37 and 57, so you have to add up those middle numbers and divide it by 2, right?
Yeah.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, because the middle number is between 57 and 60.
Right. So what two numbers you would add?
Sure, hold
Let's
on.
check.
Give me a minute. 45 and 45.
45 and I don't even know. I think
Mm-hmm.
55.
45 and 45.
Yeah,
45 and
there.
45, right?
Which will give you 45.
When you divide it by 2, right? When you find the average.
Yep.
Okay.
Should be.
I here trying to write it on the
You know
screen. It
what
should
crazy,
load.
man? Oh, this man got a man for everything. Like,
It should load soon.
this man got a
So we see here that when it basically here the line would come here between here. I tried drawing it, but it's taking a while to load. But let's say the line, the middle is here. Okay, so it's almost like we group these here to find the center between these two groups of data. Right? So we're trying to find the center of these two groups of data. So if you look at that by itself, the first one, we could find the first quartile inside these set of numbers here. And as Davisha was saying, we find the two center numbers, since in this case it's even. So we'll say 45 and 45. So if we add 45 and 45 and divide it by 2, we would get 45 plus 45 divided by 2 is equal to 45. We're just basically finding the average of two of them. So that is the value for the lower quartile. So the lower quartile is actually equal to 45. Okay. Now the next thing we need to calculate is the upper quartile. So we're in the same situation where when we separate this, remember between here represents the median. When we separate this, we have these values. We have an even value again, an even value of numbers again. So we're looking at the two center numbers, which would be 72 and 77. 72 and 77. So now we could add both of them together.
I have a question. If you got one
Go
middle
ahead.
number, you got include that for the lower quartile to find like your lower quartile.
So if we had a lower number and it was only one, if it was only one middle number, that would be the lower quartile.
No, I mean like you see how it got two stuff that gonna be the median, right? 57 and 62, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you take out 62, and then
Mm-hmm.
57 might be the median. You got for like walking out, you got put. I don't even know how to explain it, but like you
Teacher,
see
he
how
wasn't
you
here.
put it in the bracket.
Oh, for the last class.
You got include that
Mm-hmm.
for your walking out.
Okay, you can see in the next question, Tajani.
Okay.
I know what you're trying to ask.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're trying to ask, but you can see it how it'll play out in the next question. Okay? So
Okay.
then after now, in this case, we got 7 to 2 plus 7 to 7. And then we divide that by 2 because we have two numbers that are in the center. So when we work that out, our quartile would be what? Our lower quartile would be what?
7 to 4.5.
7 to 4.5. So now we did all of this to calculate somebody who we haven't started to calculate yet.
Your interquartile range.
Interquartile range. And how do we find that now?
You minus it. You find a difference between the upper quartile and the lower quartile.
So we have then our interquartile range is equal to 7 to 4.5 minus 4 to 5. And then we could get our answer. Okay?
29.5.
To the
Yeah.
9.5. Okay? So we got 29.5%. Okay, so what about the semi-quartile range
Wait,
now?
interquartile
Divided by
being
2.
percentage?
Yeah, because
No.
remember this one was grades. For this one, it was grades. That's
So he
why.
mean all the time.
Oh, not all the time. No, no, no. It all depends on what it is. So if it's chickens, you would use chickens. If it, meters, you use meters and so forth.
Right? Oops.
Yeah. So the semi-quartile range would be what now?
29.5 divided by 2, which is
Mm-hmm.
14.75.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going 14.75.
So would you round it up or no?
Well, it depends on if they tell you to do it or not. But usually we leave it to 2 decimal places.
Okay.
Teacher, make
So
it
then you
answer, let her
gotta,
join.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's see.
then you gotta fix the interquartile range.
So you guys understand that now? Make sense?
Yeah.
Anybody got these answers? If you got these answers, say yes. Just type
Yeah.
yes in the chat.
Yes. Oh.
Type it to
Yeah. Okay. Nice. All right. Okay. So usually when we're doing these things, and especially when we're comparing data, we try to make sure we have the same number of people in this class. So for instance, in this class we had 12 people. So in the next class we would like to get 12 people, right? But just for the purpose of what Tajana was asking, we're gonna have one less grade. One less grade. So for this one, I want you guys to calculate the same thing, the range, then the interquartile range and the semi-interquartile range. Okay,
Teacher,
so
what do you mean by one less grade?
so you see last time we had 12. This time how much we have altogether?
We're gonna have 11.
We
That
got
way you're
11
gonna
now.
have a median. That way you don't have to add two numbers
So you
to get a
remember
median.
Tajana was asking the question because he wasn't there for the last one. Where when you get a number in the center and it's a median, so you don't actually have to find the average. So this could be a situation like that. So that's for him to see what if we don't get like two numbers that in the center, how we actually find the quartiles.
Okay. Thank you.
But usually in reality, when we're doing a study, we want to have like a balance between the groups that we compare. So let's see how quickly you guys could get to this one.
I wasn't here, so.
Okay, so we're doing a range, the interquartile range and the semi-interquartile range. So just see what you can grasp for now, and then you'll check it out later, okay? Like this, you want to be careful because look, I could have spotted 91 and be like, you know what, 91 is the highest, and completely miss this 92 here. So that's something that you got to be mindful of. And the lowest one was 52. The lowest one was 52. So we could say that the range is equal to 92 minus 52. So for this one, we got 40%. All right. So if you got that correct, just type yes in the chat. See who got it correct. Yes. So we got Davisha, Amelia, Tijan, Omar, Aisha again, Terry Green, Tijane, Dorian, Shakila, Darian, Deja. Some of you guys still missing. Denico. So before we actually go on to the interquartile range, I want you guys to notice something here. Now, the range for class B or group B was 40%. Now, when you look at the range for the other class, it was 45%. So if you're comparing the two classes or the two groups, you will realize that the data has a larger spread for group A than for group B. So to some degree, most of the people in group B, had a grade that was about almost around the same kind of area. It wasn't too far off. Everyone kind of performed relatively well relative to how the entire class performed. Whereas when you look at the other one, you see we had somebody who get an 82, and in that same class, somebody get a 37. So we getting somebody who get an A to somebody who actually getting an E. And then when we come to the next class, we see that somebody got 92, but the person who got the lowest score still got 52. They still passed. They didn't get a really, really, really low grade. And overall, it was a little closer than the one for group A. All right. So now we'll check the interquartile range and see if we see anything similar as well in terms of the spread for that. So the first thing we need to do is arrange from lowest to highest. From lowest to highest. Now we have the arrangement here. So this should answer what you was talking about earlier, Tijani. So in this case, we know that the middle is right here. Okay, so that's the middle number right there. Now we can put the brackets around other sides, the other two halves that we got here, and actually try to find the central number we have here. Okay, or the
okay.
median of this section, you see? So it makes sense now, right?
Yeah, it was just confusing and I thought I did it wrong, but I actually do it right.
Right, good. So in this case now, as you can see, we have an odd number on this side. So the center number or the median of this half is 68. And this 68 represents the lower quartile. And if you look on the next one, this half here, the central number or the median of this half is 87. And that tells us the upper quartile. Now, if we try to work out the interquartile range, we will simply have 87 minus 68. So 87 minus 68 would give us the interquartile range. And when we work that out,
That's 19.
we should get
19%.
19%. Okay, now check this out. We're comparing another measure of dispersion. So this one we had 19%, and the first one we had 29.5. So you can still see that the grades were closer for group B relative to when we comparing it with group A. So still with that kind of comparison, we still see that the data had a larger spread for group A. Okay. Now with the interquartile range, we got 19 here. This one had 29.5. All right. So let's see those of you who got 19% for this.
correct.
Yeah,
Oh,
nice. Good. Brilliant. All right, so the semi-interquartile range, that should be easy now. So how do we actually calculate that?
You divide the interquartile range
divide
by 2.
19 by 2.
Right, so then the answer should be what?
9.5%.
9.5.
9.5%.
Right. And that again, when we compare that, we could see that which data has the larger spread?
Group A.
Group A.
Group A.
Mhm. Group A has the larger spread. Okay, so what we're gonna try to do now, I want you guys to try and answer a past paper question on this from 2018, January 2018. Okay, so I'll leave it here for you guys to see.
Teacher, don't zoom.
We don't have to
Never.
do B?
So again,
Do we have to do AB? 4?
which one? Yeah, you should be able to do that.
I can't see it, the question, so.
Can't see it?
You could zoom in now.
To genre.
The question cut off. We cannot read it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
type it for you, don't worry.
No, touch
Cut
it.
off the
It's
question.
fine. It's fine.
We like it that way.
I think I is smart.
want it that way.
Okay, so work on that
So
for
we know
now.
we smart. What do you mean?
The question was completely fine cut off, teach. You didn't have to go through all of this.
Don't worry,
Exactly.
going out of my way for you guys. So
So, but you don't have to, you know.
Oh,
Make sure
it's
you can go
fine.
sleep.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh wow. Teach making sure that we can see it like.
That hurt my feelings.
All right, so let's see how you guys actually get this one.
teacher,
Okay,
to
Dad, this
zoom in.
is your fault.
To Janet, I know.
What I do?
Dad, this is your fault. Stop.
Had to tell teacher that we could have seen the question.
That means I had to bring it up. That's the problem.
Cause it was
Exactly.
there. It was on a paper,
If
so I
you
was
didn't,
making sure.
if you didn't bring it up, we wouldn't have this.
See all that
Just gonna do it.
energy.
Just gonna
Are
ding
you
a man.
using to discuss that? Or you could be doing a question, you know.
Shall we writing and talking?
But teacher, we rated. Oh,
All right, so I go ahead now. So this here is as I said, a past paper question. So let's. All right, so let's look at what we have now. So we need to find a range. So that means we have to look at the highest and lowest value. Trying to find the highest and lowest value. So put these values over here so you can see. So the highest value we have is 45, and the lowest value we have is 26. So we have to find a difference between two of them in order to find the range. Okay, we need to find a difference between two of them in order to find the range. So that means the range is going to be 45 subtract 26. 45 subtract 26, which would give us the answer of 19, right? 19. So if you got that, just type easy in the chat. Easy. Easy. Nice. Good. So you got 19 for that. So the next one now, the median. We actually just need to find the two, well, in this case, we have a even number of items. So we know it's going to be two numbers that we're going to have to find the average of. So the two center numbers would be 37 and 38. 37 and 38. And what we need to do is add the 37 and the 38 together, which gives us,
75.
and then we divide that by
2.
To give you 37.5.
5. Yeah.
37.5. So this one just has no, this wasn't an actual percentage because remember the overall score was just out of a number. So they didn't actually calculate a percentage. So you just got 37.5 marks, you could say. So interquartile range now. The interquartile range. What do we do for that? Same process.
You
Go
find the
ahead.
difference between 38 and 31.
Equals 7 minus 21 equals 7.
Right.
9. 7, 7, my bad.
This is a lower quartile. This here is a upper quartile. So then we actually got 38 minus 31, which is equal to 7
7
marks. Simple, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Anybody didn't get that? Are we good?
We good.
Yeah.
We go to
And the last one now, the last one asks the probability that a student chosen at random scores less than half the total marks on the test. So the first thing we need to do is
4.110.
find out what was the total score on the test.
60.
60. And what's half of 60?
30.
30.
30. So the probability of having less than
2.
30 would be what?
2.
Go.
Oh, you
What
get
do you
4.
mean by 2? What is 2?
2 people.
26
2
and
students.
29.
3. 3. I put
2
3.
students
I got
out of
3.
what?
Okay, 10.
Out of 10.
20%.
You know, out of 10, I think.
Right. Remember, when we're doing the probabilities, we need to put
80%.
out of the total.
So 20%.
Would you put
20%.
students, total of 10 students or no?
2 out of 10. Our 20 students are 0.2. However you fancy doing it.
20%. Yeah, 20%. Yeah,
20%,
20%.
yeah. So basically what we did here, we found the question said scored was out of 60. Okay. Now in the whole class, these were the score. Well, the sample that I took, this is what we got. Now it's asking for less than half of the total marks. So if the total marks was 60, half of that would be 30. So from 30 underneath, any numbers that we have with 30 are less. So in this case, we have 26 and
Just
29.
30 or less or just less than 30?
Less than 30. We got 29 here and 26. So if we try to highlight this, you see that we actually had 2 people who got under 30. So they represent basically the sample statistic. So then the probability that someone randomly chosen in the class would get under 30 or less than 50%, or what we would call fail the test, would be 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10. Does that make sense?
Yes, teacher.
Yeah. Any questions?
Yes.
No. If
Okay.
you could leave now.
You could leave, but I want to show you guys one thing before I leave.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
I could go. All right. So you remember. Let's see if I can actually find what it looked like. Let me see.